Hi, and welcome to the Adaptive Technology for Reading and Writing workshop. If you're not familiar with what adaptive technology is hardware or software that creates an equal access to online and physical environments. These tools can help you be more productive, more independent, or participate more. If you have any questions about adaptive technology or need help troubleshooting adaptive technology, please visit us during our adaptive technology drop-in hours. If those times don't work for you, we can schedule an appointment, or you can email us at adaptivetech@pdx.edu. Today we're going to talk about three main reading tools, and then we'll finish up by briefly discussing two writing tools that may be helpful to you as a student, even if you are participating in remote learning or online learning. Some of these tools are free to you as a student registered with the DRC, while others would need to be purchased on your own, and I'll explain which are which once we get to them. So I wanted to start out first by showing you the DRC website and where you can find the adaptive technology page, since this can give you more suggestions on other reading and writing tools or more information about the technology that we talk about today. Okay, so this is the DRC homepage. So to find the adaptive technology webpage, if you go to the top menu and select accommodations, there's a drop-down menu, and from here you can navigate to adaptive technology. I'll select that, and once this loads, on the left, it briefly describes what adaptive technology is, and on the right column, here are different categories of adaptive technology. So there's adaptive technology for note-taking and organization, which we have another workshop for. There's adaptive technology for communication and math. Since we're specifically talking about reading and writing today, I'll go ahead and select that link. And this will take me to the reading and writing web page. On the left-hand side, there's a column that gives suggestions and options for adaptive technology for reading, while on the right side, there are suggestions for writing. In general, with adaptive technology, there's a large range of different kinds of technology. On one end, there is free open sourced technology that maybe doesn't have a lot of features or might have some glitches, where on the other end of that range are more expensive tools that have tons and tons of features, and they're kind of the gold standard of adaptive technology. So we'll talk about a few different things along that range in our workshop today. So first, for our reading tools, we will start out with talking about Natural Reader, which is right here. Natural Reader does have a free option. After we're done talking about Natural Reader, I'll introduce Voice Dream Reader. And then we'll spend a large chunk of our workshop talking about Kurzweil 3000, which has reading and also writing software and tools that you can use. And then we'll finish up the workshop by briefly talking about Google Voice Typing. Okay, so we'll start out first by showing you Natural Reader, which is, I'll show you on an iPad. To navigate to Natural Reader, you can select the Natural Reader icon to open up the application. And right now I have a book from Alice in Wonderland that I will demonstrate for you today. So as you can see, there is highlighting on the page right now. So to start having Natural Reader read to you, you can tap anywhere where there's text. So I'll go ahead and tap at where this next paragraph starts, and it will start reading.
What is the use of a book? Thought Alice without pictures or conversations, so she was considering in her own mind as well as she could.
For the hot day made her feel very sleepy and stupid. So to pause, I selected here at the bottom right, there is a play button as well as a pause button that you can use. There's also, so you'll notice that it highlights in yellow as it reads, and it does it by phrase more or less. Natural Reader this is the free version of Natural Reader that I'm showing you right now. It does have a paid version as well that has some more options than I'll show you today. Natural Reader also does have a web browser version. So if you wanted to use it on Google Chrome or Firefox, you could open their website and copy and paste text in or upload a document and it will read it out loud to you. Natural Reader, because this is on the lower end of the range that I was explaining about adaptive technology. So because it's free, that also means that it does not have maybe as many features as other text-to-speech tools might. But a really great feature about Natural Reader is it has a focus mode. So here on the bottom where this arrow is, I'll go ahead and select that, and this will open up the focus mode. So here you can see that now it's listing that phrase by phrase, what it was highlighting in yellow. For the options up here at the top, there's a toolbar. If I select the speaker icon, this will then allow me to change the speed, the language, as well as the voice. And in the paid version, they have more voices that you can select from that sound a little more natural. And then if you wanted to change the visual options for the size of the text, you can select the double A icon and then you can make the text smaller or bigger depending on what your preference is. You can also change the background color by selecting the circle icon. So if you wanted to have a black background so that it's easier on your eyes, you can change that. And then here at the bottom is where you have your controls. So here in the middle is a play button, and then they have icons so you can go a phrase ahead or a phrase back. And then here on the bottom is a navigation tool so you can go from page to page. But besides that, the way that you would navigate in the regular mode for Natural Reader is just to scroll with your finger. So that is it for Natural Reader. There really isn't a lot to it, but if you wanted to try it out, you can download the free version, and then if you wanted to have a little bit extra, you could choose to purchase it on your own. Now I'll show you Voice Dream Reader, which is another mobile app that you can use. So I'll go ahead and open that. Voice Dream Reader I have right here, so I'll go ahead and select that to open up this application. And Voice Dream Reader is one that you would need to purchase because they don't have a free version that you can use. But this is along that middle range. So Natural Reader was on the lower end, Voice Dream Reader is in the middle, and then when we talk about Kurzweil, that's on the far end of being the gold standard of text-to-speech technology. So Voice Dream Reader has note-taking capabilities and the voices sound a little bit more natural. So this is a really great option for a lot of students who want to have something available on a mobile device and an application that will read their text out loud to them. Similar to Natural Reader, Voice Dream Reader can only read accessible documents, but Voice Dream Reader does have a separate app that you can purchase that is called Voice Dream Scanner that allows you to scan documents, and then it has technology that can convert that document from an inaccessible picture into an accessible document that Voice Dream Reader can then use and read. So first I'll show you the navigation tools that are here at the bottom. So just to scroll from page to page, you can use your finger to scroll. And then here at the bottom, you have your play button, and then these two buttons jump about 30 seconds ahead or behind within the reading. At the bottom here, there is this range. So right now, if I were to start the reading, it's about 40 minutes into the reading, and I would have about 3 hours left. So in total, the reading is about 3 hours and 40 minutes for this whole psychology text, for this textbook chapter. There's also this percentage that shows you about how far along you are in the reading. So this can be a helpful tool. To start reading, I'll go ahead and zoom in so we can see the text a little bit better here. So to start reading, at any point in the document, you can double tap on a word and it will start reading. There's also, of course, the play button that you can select as well. So I'll go ahead and double tap at the word because.
Because of confirmation bias, our preconceptions often lead us to focus on evidence that bolsters our beliefs, resulting in psychological tunnel vision.
All right, so I went ahead and paused it by selecting the pause button there at the bottom. This is hard to see on the camera, but as it is reading, it has this box that appears around the word as it reads each word. And then this is hard to see on the camera, but there is this yellow highlighting, and that yellow highlighting appears across the whole line of text. So you can change that within the preferences if you do not want that box to appear or do not want the highlighting to appear. You can change that if you want. For note taking, if you wanted, I'll go ahead and scroll or zoom back in here. The note taking options are available if you tap and hold. So let's say, for example, I wanted to take a note specifically on this word number. I'll go ahead and tap and hold, and then all the different note taking features appear for me. So of course I can copy or look this up if I wanted to with Define. I can also highlight or make a note or a bookmark. So if I wanted to make a note, I'll select note, and then I can write this is a note, and I'll save that. And then it highlights it, and then there is this tiny little yellow box that appears next to it to give me an idea that I wrote a note there. You can also access your highlights and notes by going to this bullet point icon here on the lower left, and then you can see your bookmarks, and then your highlights and notes also appear in this section as well. If you wanted to change some of the reading features, you can go to this double switch icon on the top right. And then from here, there's a reading mode. So usually we recommend that you have it stop at the end of the document, but you can have it stop at the end of each sentence, and then you would have to start it again so it will keep reading for you. You can also have it keep going to the next document. So if you had several textbook chapters queued up, you can have it continue reading without it stopping at the end of the document. There's also a timer feature. So if you only wanted to read for a set amount of time, you can set up the timer. And so there's set times, and then here at the bottom, you can input any value for a set amount of minutes. And then after it's done reading for that amount of time, it will then stop the reading. To control some of the visual and audio features of VoiceStream Reader, there are your options up here at the top right of the window. I'll select the antenna icon first. So these, then it pops up with this audio settings window. From here, I can control the speed. So I can make it faster or slower. I can change the language or the voice. And there's also advanced audio options that you can look at as well. I'll now go ahead and select the double A icon, which brings up a visual settings window. And from here, there's not a lot that you can do within the original layout, but it has this really neat option, which is the plain text. So I'll go ahead and select that. And what it does is it gets rid of all of the extra images or visual aspects that there are within a textbook, and it gives you just plain text. And then from within here, you can change the font and spacing. So right now I have it set to a font that is particularly good for people who have dyslexia. But if I wanted to change this to Arial, I can change that. And then you can make it bold or regular. You can also change the text size and character spacing or anything else that would be great for you. You can also change the color of the document. So if I select dark, it will change it so that the background is black and the text is white, which is particularly good for eye strain. It can help reduce eye strain for you. Okay, so now I'm going to navigate back to the original layout. And that is the basics of VoiceStream Reader, but this is a really great option if you're looking for something that is robust enough to use for your classes and has a good text-to-speech voice that sounds a little bit more natural. Now I'll go ahead and introduce Kurzweil, which is one of our most popular softwares that we use with students. Kurzweil is a reading and writing platform that you can use when you have readings that you need read out loud to you, and it also helps with the writing process since it has a feature where you can create brainstorms and write out outlines, and it also has a word processor. But the most helpful feature for a lot of students is that it can convert image PDFs or RTFs, EPUB, and DAISY files into accessible formats that can then be read out loud to you. You can use Kurzweil if you have the e-text accommodation through the DRC. You can get a free Kurzweil license that you can then download on your computer or access it in one of the other available formats. If you don't have the e-text accommodation, or if you're not sure if you have it, please reach out to your access counselor, and when you talk to them, they can help get you set up with that if it is an accommodation that would work for you. So Kurzweil has three ways that you can access it. The first is a web browser version. There's also a Read the Web Chrome extension that allows you to have web pages read out loud to you. And there's also the software version. So for this workshop today, I'm going to demonstrate and show you the Mac version of the software that I've downloaded onto my Mac device. Okay, so I'm going to bring up Kurzweil here, and with the Mac version of Kurzweil, there's not a lot that usually pops up at the beginning. If it's your first time downloading it, it will usually show a welcome document, and it will have a tip of the day that usually shows up by default. Right now, I have just the starting points window that appears. And from here, I have different options. New allows me to create a new blank word processing document. Open is what allows me to open a file in Kurzweil that can be a PDF or one of the other compatible file types. So I'm going to click open here. And then I will select a file from my local computer that I can then convert. So I'll select open, and then it will pop up here with a recognition page range window. So for our specific workshop, I'm going to have it recognize pages 4 to 7. As you could see, that was a pretty long document. If I wanted to convert the whole document, it might take it a little while because the longer the page range, the longer it takes Kurzweil to convert each page into an accessible format that can then be read. So I got pages 4 to 7, I'll select open, and at this point, Kurzweil is going to start recognizing and processing that document. So right here, it has the pop-up window that shows the progress that it's made. And the conversion process has 2 steps. First, it will say it's adding the pages, and then when it's doing the actual OCR, or optical character recognition, and converting that into a readable format, it will say that it's recognizing the pages. And this is usually the part that takes the longest. If you do want to open a file from a different point, if you go to the top toolbar and select File, from here you can open this option will open something from your local computer. You can also open from your Google Drive if you want to link that, which can be particularly helpful if you're an e-text student through the DRC, since the DRC drops off your readings, your electronic readings, in a Google Drive folder. There's also the Universal Library. Kurzweil's Universal Library is a cloud that Kurzweil has where you can store your Kurzweil converted readings. So this is helpful because it allows you to access your Kurzweil readings across different devices. So if you had one reading you were using on a particular device, you can then access that on a library computer, for example. So that's just a helpful option. Also, if you're going to be using the web browser version too. So that's a place that you can open from and also save to. All right, so I'm gonna pop back here to our reading. So now it's all done converting this for me. And usually you'll see on the left here, I have this tools toolbar that's usually not there. So I'm gonna exit out of that and I'll show you how to find that later. So here is our reading. So this is just a psychology textbook from the first chapter, just for your reference. So the first things that I'll show you are the visual options with Kurzweil. So if I wanted to zoom in or out, there are these plus and minus buttons that I can select to zoom in or out. Between those buttons, there's also this slider, so we can slide in and out with that. There's also another way that you can find those zoom options is if you go under the top menu toolbar, select view, and then from here there are different fit options such as fitting to text height or text width, and also zoom percentages as well. I am going to keep it at this so we can see everything there. And you'll notice when I go from page to page, which I can navigate with these arrows here at the bottom of the window, it will keep that zoom percentage whenever I move across pages, which is really helpful. So to navigate from page to page, there's these arrows that are left and right. If you click in the middle between those arrows where it says page, here you can also type in a number. So I can type 1 and then select go, and it will take me back to that first page. So at this point, you'll notice below here it says page 104. But if I scroll down to the bottom, I can see on the bottom left, this page is actually page 4 in the textbook. It can be helpful to reset the page numbers in your Kurzweil, in this Kurzweil reading if you have readings that are assigned by page. So I'll show you how to change that. If you go to the top toolbar and select Edit and go to Set First Page Number, you can then change what the first page number should be. So I'm going to change it from 1 and change that to 4, and it lets me know below that the pages will be numbered 4 through 7. I'll select OK, and then here at the bottom I can see that's reflected that now I'm on page 4 of 4 to 7. There's other options you can also change under the view option in the top toolbar that you can change so that it appears in black and white, or you can have it inverted so the background is black and the text is white, which can be helpful as well. All right, so I'm going to set it back to color. So those are the basics on the visual options for Kurzweil. So now I want to show you how to have it read out loud to you. So there's a separate window that appears that you can use to control the reading options. This does not automatically appear. So if it ever disappears, to find it, you'll go under the top toolbar, select Window, and then select Show Reader. This will pop up with a little window that says Kurzweil 3000 Reader. And from here you have all the controls that you need to control the reading options on Kurzweil. You can also find these same options if you go to the top toolbar, select Read, and here it has more options as well that you can use for if you wanted to change the reading as the text is being read to you. So now I'm going to demonstrate this for you. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing for a second and I'm going to reshare to make sure that my computer sound is shared with you. Okay, great. So to start reading, I can click anywhere in my document. Right now, my red cursor is right here, but I'll click up here so that it will start reading from the beginning. And I'll zoom in so this can be seen a little bit better. Okay, so to start reading, I'll go ahead and hit the play button that's right here in the middle.
For many of you reading this text, it's maybe your first psychology course.
So you'll notice as it was reading, it had this whole sentence highlighted in yellow, and then it highlighted each individual word as it was being read in green. You can change these options if you want to in your preferences, but that's what the default is set to. So we have our options here to rewind, go forward, and play, of course. If you want it to stop reading, you can click outside of where the text is, or you can select the pause button. For more audio options, we'll go over back here to our Kurzweil Reader window. So to change, if I wanted to change the highlighting in yellow, so right now it's set to sentence, which is the unit. I can change this to a line, word, or phrase instead if I would rather have the yellow go for that certain amount of unit. I can also change the mode. Right now it's set to continuously, which means that Kurzweil will keep reading until it reaches the end of the document or unless I stop it. If I wanted to change that to self-paced links to the unit. So right now my unit is set to the sentence level. So if I were to hit play again, it's going to stop after each sentence. So I'll have to hit the play button again after every sentence is read. Word by word is also another mode and unit that you can select as well. We don't usually recommend using that unless you have a vocabulary list that you're listening to, just because it can be a little off-putting just having everything go word by word. You can also change the voice from this window. Right now I have it selected on Samantha, but there's also other languages here as well. So if you do have a document you're going to read that is in a different language, you can have it read with the appropriate accent and language. Here below, you can also change the words per minute. You can type in a value, or you can use the up and down arrows to select a different speed. All right, so those are the basics on having Kurzweil read to you. So I'm going to exit out of our Kurzweil reader here. I do want to show you another option if you wanted to add things to this top toolbar here. There are options in there already, but you might not find those quite helpful. So if you wanted to add some extra things, you can go to the top toolbar here. And if you go to the view option and select edit customize toolbar, this will come up with a bunch of different icons and options that you can then drag into your toolbar. Ones that you might find particularly helpful are next page and previous page, so you don't need to go click or select those little arrows that are at the bottom of each page. There's also the create audio file. So if you wanted to create an MP3, which I'll also show you how to do that in just a moment. There's the read and pause, which is huge. That way you don't have to bring up that reader window every time. And also open, of course. So that's the way that you can customize the toolbar if you wanted. So now I'll go ahead and show you if you wanted to create an MP3 file of your Kurzweil reading. You can do this by going to the top toolbar, selecting File, and then selecting Create Audio File. This will bring up a window that you can then select the voice and the words per minute. You can also have it include any notes that you've written if you have. And then from here, you'll select the file format. We usually recommend selecting MP3. You do have the option to create a audiobook or a folder within Apple Music for your Kurzweil readings, but if you have that deselected, it will just have you save to your computer. Great, so now I want to show you the note-taking tools that Kurzweil has. So to find these, you can go to Tools in the top toolbar and select any of these. But what I find most helpful for me is under the window option, I'm going to select the Show Tools option, and this will pop up with a little toolbar that has icons of all the different tools you can use. If you hover over them, it will tell you what that tool is called. So for this demonstration, for the highlighters that they have, I'm not going to use yellow or green because yellow and green is used for what the reading is, for the reading units in Kurzweil. So just to help me not get confused, I'm going to use different colors for the demonstration. So the note-taking tools can be really helpful just to help keep your reading focused, and then you can come back and then read with all your notes in there in one place. By the way, it is really important after your file has been converted, please save your Kurzweil document. You can do this by going under File and then Save. Like I mentioned, you can save to the Universal Library, which is that Kurzweil cloud. You can also save to your local desktop, or you can also save to your Google Drive. The reason why it's so important to save is because if you don't save it and you need to come back to this reading, you'll have to wait for Kurzweil to convert every single page again, and that can take some time depending on how long your pages are. And then of course, if you've taken notes on it, you'll lose those notes too if you don't save. Okay, so now I'll demonstrate some of these tools. So a really helpful way to take notes with highlighters is to designate certain colors to represent different things. So I'm going to change the page, and I'm going to select, this says cyan, but I'll say this is our blue highlighter. I'm going to say blue represents main ideas in my notes. So as I'm reading, I can see there's lots of bolded terms. So I'm going to highlight my bolded terms as my main ideas. And then this magenta or pink highlighter, I'll say represents the supporting ideas that I read. So this might be a supporting idea, and this sentence might be a supporting idea as well. If I do mark something on accident, I can always go back and I can select this eraser icon, and I can just click and drag to get rid of that. And the same thing with the highlighters, you just click and drag to have it highlight. So, and let's say I'll pick a third color that's just going to be other, that doesn't really fit into a main idea or a supporting idea. So that's how the highlighter tool works. There's also these options that are circle highlighters. Other note-taking tools in Kurzweil include footnotes, voice notes, sticky notes, and text notes and bubble notes. So for a footnote, I'll go ahead and activate my cursor here so I'm not highlighting things. I can click before any word, and if I activate this footnote, I can click on any word or select any word, and this will pop up with a window that I can then write notes in. This is helpful if, I'll go ahead and exit out of this, if you don't want your notes to appear and take up extra space on your Kurzweil document. So it just pops up with a icon that shows you what order you've written your notes in. The voice note-taking tool is the same. You can select it, and then you can select any word, and then it will ask you to record. You can also import as well. The sticky note tool is a text tool that appears on the Kurzweil document. So I can write, this is a sticky note, and that will pop up for me, and you can move that wherever you want. The text note-taking tool is very similar to the sticky note tool. So I'll just write in here, this is a text note. This just doesn't have the background color that the sticky note has. And I can move this wherever I want to. So I can move this over, and I can change the colors as well under my preferences if I wanted to change the sticky note background or the text note color to make it stand out a little more. A really interesting feature that the Mac version of Kurzweil has is this bubble note. So this is particularly helpful if you have maybe questions or an assignment that's linked to the reading that you're doing. So I'll select this bubble note icon and highlight this word. So this pops up with a window that then I can write a question or a title up here in this first part, and then below I can write other relevant information. I can also select it to read the note if I wanted to, or I can have it not read the note at all. And then also here are the different question options if you wanted to use it in that way. But you can use any of these tools however you think would work best for you. Kurzweil also does have a bookmark feature, so if you find something important, you can also mark that too. So that is it for the note-taking features of Kurzweil. So There's one more thing I want to show you about the notes. So like I said, we do recommend you review your notes within Kurzweil. But if you did want to export those for any reason, you can go to the top toolbar, select File, and then from here you can extract notes and highlighted text, and that will make it into a window that you can then copy and paste into a Word document, or if you select X, save, you can then save it as a Word document as well. So that's an option if you wanted to have your notes exported, so then you can have easy access to write a paper or something like that. I do want to show you one last note-taking tool. Again, if you go to the top toolbar, select File, and then extract highlights to column notes. This is a helpful tool that can help you organize your notes a little bit more. Particularly by highlighter. So I had mentioned that cyan or blue was going to be my main ideas. So I'm going to make sure I select that as my first column, and magenta were my supporting ideas. So I'll select that as second column. And the orange highlighter I had mentioned was going to be just my other. So I'll make that my third column. I didn't use any other highlighters, so I'll go ahead and just leave those where they're at because they won't appear. So now I'll select OK, and I'll open a new notes file. And here I have a pop-up window that then auto-populates all of my highlights into this file. So here I can see on the left-hand column, I have all my main ideas, so all of the blue that I had highlighted. In the middle are my supporting ideas, and on the right are my other. You can also type straight into this if you wanted to, and then this saves as its own kind of Kurzweil file. So I'll close that without saving since I don't need to go back to that later. All right, so I showed you how to read with Kurzweil, how to take notes with Kurzweil. So now I want to show you the writing features of Kurzweil. So the easiest way to find the writing portion of Kurzweil is to go to the top toolbar, select File, and then from here, if you select Start Writing, it has a few different options of what you can do to start writing. So most of what we'll focus on today for the writing of Kurzweil is the Brainstorm feature. Brainstorm is a lot like if you're familiar with what a mind map is, it's really similar to that. It's just a visual way to organize your ideas in a kind of hierarchical manner. So I'll show you what that looks like. So with a Brainstorm, I can either open a blank one or from a template, because Kurzweil does have templates you can use for compare and contrast papers, for other kinds of papers that you might need to write. I'm going to select a blank one just for our purposes. And then all blank brainstorms start with a main idea at the top. Over here on the left, it should come up automatically with this toolbar that you can use for all the different features of what you can use for the brainstorm. So I'm going to select this main idea and move it into the middle. And then let's say, for example, I wanted to write a paper that's about dog breeds. So I'll double click here in the main idea where the text is, and I'll write dog breeds. And then I'll click out. And whenever I click around on this page, it appears with a crosshair icon. This is what lets you know where a shape will appear if you choose to add something to your brainstorm. So I have a bunch of different shapes here I can choose from, but I'm going to use the oval again just for this demonstration. So I'll select that. And now it pops up with another oval. So I can double click within that, and then I can write more text. So let's say dog breeds is my overarching topic, but I'm specifically going to compare big dogs and small dogs. So I'll write big dogs in this oval. And then if I wanted to connect these two, which is helpful later on just for your organizational purposes, you'll want to click on the option that is higher up in your hierarchy. So dog breeds is my overarching topic, so I'll select that. And then I can select this chain link icon from my toolbar, and this will appear with an arrow. I'll want to make sure that the tip of the arrow is pointing towards whatever my subcategory is. So I'll go ahead and select big dogs, and now that appears here. A quicker way to do that, if I wanted to add something below, is with this speech bubble icon that has an addition sign in it. If I select dog breeds and I select this icon here, that will just automatically pop up with an oval with an arrow that's attached to it. So now I'll double click in here and I'll write small dogs. So I have my two sub topics, and let's say I wanted to add supporting points to all of those. So I'll go ahead and select the speech icon with the addition sign, and I'll double click and I can say this is my supporting idea 1. I'll select big dogs again and click that speech bubble icon. I'll label this one supporting idea 2, and then I can also do that for small dogs. So this is just a really great way that you can organize your thoughts as you're writing a paper. There's also the option that you can change the colors as well if you wanted to organize things that way. Once you are done writing your brainstorm, you can then change things into a different view. So right now on this top toolbar of the window, right now I have brainstorm view selected. So if I were done with my brainstorm, I can then convert it to an outline by selecting outline view. So as you'll see, it then took my brainstorm, and based on the order that I had things in, it now made an outline for me. So it says my overarching idea is dog breeds, and then I have everything that falls into order with my outline. I can then go into draft view, and this creates a word processing window that I can then type my paper in. But we usually recommend that if you are going to be using Kurzweil for the word processing features and writing things based off of the outline, to go to split view. Split view splits your window into two halves. So on the left you have your outline, and on the right is where the word processing window is. So at this point I could start writing my paper. So I could say, there are lots of different dog breeds. There are big dogs and small dogs. And then I could go on from there. The really helpful thing about Kurzweil's writing feature is that you can then go back and listen to whatever you wrote. I know for me, for example, sometimes when I write things, it doesn't quite come across the same way when it's read out loud versus when I'm reading it, because I'm familiar with what I've written. So it can be helpful to go back and listen to this. So I can go back to draft view, and that will get rid of my outline. And since my reader window has disappeared and I don't have the option up here to read, I'll go to my top toolbar, select window, then show reader. And then I'll make sure that my cursor is before the beginning of my paper. And when I select this play button, it will start reading.
There are lots of different dog breeds. There are big dogs and small dogs.
So this can be a helpful way that you can just re-listen to, listen to what you've written and see if everything sounds right. Okay, so those are the main aspects of Kurzweil's writing feature. You do also have some options with formatting, so you can change the font. You can also change text features so that you can center a line. The only thing with formatting in Kurzweil is that if you then save this file as a Word document, a lot of the formatting doesn't transfer over. So if you are going to use Kurzweil for its word processing features, we would recommend writing all your ideas out here, but then copy and paste what you've written into a Google Doc or a Word doc, and format everything in the Google Doc or Word doc instead. All right, so that is everything for Kurzweil. So now I'm going to briefly show you Google Voice Typing. So Google Voice Typing is a helpful tool if you are a person who likes to say things out loud, who needs to talk through things to process them and get ideas, or if you would just rather not type. Now I want to talk to you a little bit about Google Voice Typing. Google Voice Typing is a speech to text tool, which means that it converts everything that's said into written or typed text. This can be particularly helpful if typing is difficult for you, or if you like to speak out loud and talk through your ideas. So this can be a helpful way to get you started with writing a paper, just to get your ideas out, as well as the actual process of writing the paper, because then you can actually say your words out loud and it will type your paper for you. So to access Google Voice Typing, you need to first open a Google Docs document. On a computer, you can only access Google Voice Typing through a Google Docs document. If you did want to use Google Voice Typing on a mobile device, you can download the Google keyboard or Gboard app from the App Store or from the Google Play Store. That will just add a keyboard to your device that you can then use Google Voice Typing on. If Today we're specifically going to talk about the Google Docs version though, so that's what I'll demonstrate. So to access Google Voice Typing from a Google Doc, you'll go to the top toolbar and select Tools. And then from here, you'll select you'll select voice typing. At this point, there will be a pop-up window that appears on the left. On this pop-up window, there is a drop-down menu that has the languages that you can select from. So if you spoke a different language, you could use that for Google Voice Typing. And to have it start picking up everything you're saying and converting that into typed text, you'll select the microphone icon. Once I have the microphone activated, it will turn red, which means that now it is picking up everything I'm saying and will convert that into typed text. One thing you'll notice is that it does not include punctuation, so it doesn't show any of my pausing or where a period might appear. But if I say period, it actually does appear with a period. There are many different Google Voice commands, including punctuation, that you can include just by saying them out loud. There is a whole web page that has all of those voice commands listed for you, which includes, of course, punctuation, but also formatting and navigation as well. So you can check that out if you're interested. In general, you'll notice also that Google Voice Typing is pretty accurate. It at first might look like it's typing something different that is from what you said, but it kind of goes through and corrects that as it reads. But you'll notice right here, it wrote the word guerra, and that is not something I know I said. I'll go ahead and stop Google Voice Typing right now by selecting that microphone icon on the left. So once you're done using Google Voice Typing, you'll want to go through and edit everything that has been typed, specifically because of errors like guerra. So you can go through and fix anything that might not look correct, and also include punctuation if you did not say the punctuation out loud while it was typing. You can also copy and paste what you've typed with Google Voice Typing into Kurzweil to listen back to everything that's been typed to help you catch any errors that might be in the document that you spoke out loud. But this is a very helpful tool for some students, so that's why we wanted to introduce it to you today. So that is all that we have for our reading and writing workshop for today. So thank you so much for coming. If you have any questions about any of the technology, apps, or software we talked about, please come in during our drop-in hours. You can also contact us via email at adaptivetech@pdx.edu. Thank you and have a great day.